From the nation of Hollywood to the Empire State, news film from around the world.
In the mid-90s, Jordan Weisman, the man that created Battletech, MechWarrior, the man that borrowed a lot of ideas from Neuromancer to create Shadowrun, was working on a new wish fulfillment fantasy: to be a pirate, but not just any kind of pirate, an air pirate. The basic idea of Weisman's creations were, if you're 5 years old, what do you want to do? You want to be in a giant robot fighting other giant robots. You want to be in the future and have lasers and machine guns and hacking, lots of hacking and magic. Hey, why not? Let's put magic in there. And hey, pilots, yeah, who doesn't want to be a pilot? Who doesn't want to fly a plane? Who doesn't want a dogfight? But not with jets. Yeah, jets tend to be not as romantic, not as heroic, but biplanes. What about planes that have propellers and wings in places that they shouldn't have? And that was the origin of Crimson Skies. It's a video game called Corsairs, which was never brought to fruition. And being that every other franchise that Weisman created was a board game at its basis, he turned it into a board game, into Crimson Skies, the one we know today. That would have been around 1998. Though it didn't really take that long for a video game to actually be made. Crimson Skies as we know it today on the PC. There was also a version for the Xbox, which I have never played and thusly cannot talk about it. And there was a bit more to Crimson Skies than just planes that looked like maybe they really couldn't fly that well or at all. It was the setting itself that was important. In what area of the world, in what era could the idea of sky pirates make sense? Well, what other era could there be than the one that truly romanticized air travel? I mean, think about it. When was air travel at its most romantic? When did people fantasize about traveling through the air in large, luxurious ships or in planes, personal planes, and going on adventures all throughout the world on, planes? There was only one era for this, because when the plane was first created, it really wasn't that romantic. It was a piece of scaffolding with wings. It looked like a bat. It was scary. It didn't really fly that well. And later on, we got commercial passenger flights, which were crap. And to this day continue to be crap because some companies believe that passengers do not have legs and would very much be better off if they could be packed into little cases and stowed away in the cargo bay somehow. And between those two eras, between two world wars, or what you would call the interbellic period, with the roaring 20s and the depression in the 30s, but that's a whole other matter. That's the era when people actually thought it was a good idea to build a sky dock, like an actual sky dock, into the Empire State Building, so that zeppelins could dock there and people could get off and board and, have it as a gigantic skyport in the middle of Manhattan. Of course, there were certain issues with wind at that altitude that made docking impossible, and the fact that the Hindenburg exploded in 1937, which kind of really didn't make people all that enthusiastic about air travel with giant, slow-moving, volatile airships. But what if that didn't happen? What if the logic just fell out? Like, who cares if you try to dock with a building at that altitude? You would probably crash into it or not be able to actually stay in one place and everyone would die. Who cares that that airship itself is filled with volatile, very, very volatile hydrogen that could explode if someone tries to shoot at it? Who cares that those planes don't actually look like they could fly that well or at all? Because sometimes propellers aren't really made to be put that way around. No one cares. Just live that fantasy. And yet the people at FASA, which was Weisman's company that created, Shadowrun and MechWarrior and Crimson Skies, were really mad about details. Yeah, sure, physics, yeah, we can throw those out, but what about the socio-economic incentive to there being pirates in the air? What could have happened? Well, how about this? The United States broke apart. Because of prohibition, because of an outbreak of influence, or because of a lot of factors, the states just broke apart, melded, merged, and came out as different independent nations unto themselves, like the nation of Hollywood, like the Pacific states, several Native American nations, and even an independent Hawaii with its own king. There you had the incentive for there to be sky pirates. The balkanization of the USA, as they called it, where each of these nations would often quarrel and really not care what one pirate did in another nation's territory, and there would be private enterprises that would fight against the pirates, the parade of aces as the game calls them, fighting against villains from all over the place, with their adventures being delivered to the public through newsreels, with that voiceover from the typical era of that time, with the kind of music that that time had, with everything that that period had at its best, like at its most romantic, with the Errol Flynn, Robin Hood, adventure, swashbuckling archetypes of the time, and with little to none of the racism and sexism that was prevalent back then. It is a beautiful, beautiful world. I've mentioned the idea of a game embracing its theme to the fullest in the Pharaoh video a few weeks ago. Embracing a theme that's already existent, that's significantly easier to do than creating one from nothing. Because although it does borrow a lot of elements from old Hollywood, Crimson Skies is its own theme. It's diesel punk before diesel punk became a thing. It's having engines and planes and flying through the air and zeppelins and movies and submarines and a sense of nostalgia for a time that never actually existed as we believe it is. Now, to do that in a board game is not easy. To do it in a video game, do it properly, that takes a whole lot of effort. And that job came down to Zipper Interactive. Creators of the SOCOM series, creators of MechWarrior 3, of Recoil, and a lot of other very good games. Like, remember Mag, that massive action game which they kinda killed a while ago? Yeah, that was them too. The Crimson Skies game, released in the year 2000, didn't just have a good theme, didn't just embrace the theme. It had personality. It had personality in spades. It had it in baseball bats, and it was hitting you over the head until you loved it. Granted, to some people it may have seemed like they were being hit in the face, because the game would just not relent at all. Like, it was Crimson Skies into the bone, into the marrow, into the nerve endings. Now, a typical flight game, a typical even an action game would have a minute. It's something like, a couple of thingamabobs on the screen and maybe some music that's a bit adventure-y, action-y. This is what Crimson Skies had in second number 1. That theme alone makes this more of an adventure-filled game, more of an action-adventure-filled game than most of the action-adventure games I've played in the past couple of years. It just beams personality at you with a laser cannon in the face. It grabs you by the collar and drags you through its world. It punches you in the face at every turn with quirky characters, radio plays, music, style, and in my case it just left me begging for more, because everything was so well built, it was so well put together, it was so honest about what it was. It wasn't up its own ass like some games are, like Remember Me, that had errorists. Yeah, that's a thing, sure, yeah, sure. Crimson Skies is a mastercraft of style. Like, I can buy this existing, I can believe this exists, I can fathom that this fantasy could be actually believable. No matter what stupid stuff happens in the game, like hijacking a plane in midair by jumping from another plane and fighting the pilots, like the crew, 3 of them, and chugging them out the door. I could buy that, yeah. That could happen. That didn't seem like it broke the flow. It was all about setting up your expectations, and like I said from the intro, expectations were, I am going to have the best time of my life. Now, if you actually were, depended on a few certain factors. If you owned a joystick, yeah. If you only had a keyboard, you were gonna have some problems with controlling the planes. This was not a simulator by far, no way a simulator. But it was close enough to being, well, no. It was far enough from being an arcade, well, no. It was a step or two above being an arcade towards the long corridor of being a simulator that it gave you a sense of fulfillment. When you flew those planes, when you actually could fly them well, when you could do so many of those stunts. Like in the maps of the game, there are areas that are just built for stunts. And you're not told about them. No, you just have at the end of the mission a scrapbook with all the things you did on that mission, and some places are empty. You start to wonder, hey, why is that place empty? Maybe the game wanted me to fly through that cave, through which most likely I would have just crashed my plane. Yeah, that's probably it. Also, the game had the mouse controls for the people that never wanted to play it again. I remember using mouse controls the first time I played it. In the first mission, I moved my mouse a bit and the plane crashed into the water. It did it so again and again, and let's say I'm glad mouse controls in games like War Thunder is not the same as it was in Crimson Skies. I'm really glad it's not, because playing a game like this with a mouse is actually quite fun, and it wasn't really all bad with the keyboard. It's just that at a certain point you could not really continue. The missions that you had in Crimson Skies were quite varied. In one moment you'd be fighting a submarine that launched fighters at you, like planes at you, which was actually a thing in World War II, though I'm not sure if it was actually deployed in warfare, but there was an actual Japanese submarine that could launch planes. Then you would be fighting zeppelins and squadrons of planes. You would be trying to hijack planes. You would be trying to meet up with a train to actually get to the level of a train, drop someone onto the train, then fight some gyrocopters and go back to the train, matching its speed before it goes into a tunnel to pick up the people from the train. It was superb. And there was the part with the races. There were races in this game at a few points. Races which, if you had the keyboard, you probably didn't have much luck with finishing them. There was no concept of saving during a mission. There was no concept of a checkpoint. There was just the concept of, oh, you clipped your wing in that Hollywood sign right at the beginning? Yeah, you're dead. There was the concept of, oh, you crashed a bit your propeller into that sign. Oh yeah, okay, you're not dead yet, but oh, your speed's gone, by the way, so take care with that. Not saying the game was unforgiving. It was quite forgiving. The ability to aim near the enemy and just have the plane, well, the pilot decide that, hey, you know what, I'm gonna rest and hit him for you. That made combat quite, well, not easy, especially not against the gyrocopters, but it made it fun, even for people that couldn't play it well or had the right control method. And all throughout the game you would control a rogue named Nathan, who set out to find Drake's fortune in a story that you could say was venturing into uncharted territory. I'll pause for the laughs. Okay, no one laughed, good. His full name was Nathan Zachary, leader of the Fortune Hunters, a band of scoundrels, but good-hearted scoundrels. People who would steal from the rich and from scum, but had a moral code. They would help those in need. They would fight against oppression, against tyranny. They were Robin Hood, basically. Robin Hood and his merry men. And ladies. There were a lot of female pilots in the game. Like I said, it wasn't placed in the exact version of the 20s and 30s. It was more of a less sexist, less racist period of time. Also a more awesome one where you got to fight zeppelins. You'll not believe my excitement when I saw that zeppelin fight in the Battlefield 1 trailer, and how disappointed I was that that map wasn't in the beta, because I'm sure still not gonna buy an entire game for just one map with one Zeppelin. I want more maps with more Zeppelins, with multiple Zeppelins, with more biplanes. I want Crimson Skies remade, if you're not paying attention to what I'm babbling about. The story was very linear. It went from mission to mission, intertwined with cinematics and very beautifully made radio dramas. Ones that gave you a better sense of characters and tension and, well, everything that most cinematics can do today. It's almost as if they were actually well written and well acted or something. And as time went on, you got predefined amounts of money that let you build your own custom plane. You could equip it with what kind of engine you wanted, what kind of weapons you wanted. It's sort of a bit like a mech building scenario here. You know, in most mech warrior game, you got to equip your mechs any way you wanted. You can even buy new ones. But sadly, Crimson Skies did not go the mercenaries route where you could just pick your missions and collect money and make yourself a rooting, tooting, fighting, shooting mech band, well, sky pirate band the way you wanted it. That's what the game was missing. Like that freedom, because the setting, oh my god, did it just beg to be opened up. It begged for an experience like the Mercenaries variants of the MechWarrior games, or something like Strike Commander where you could choose your own missions at least. Strike Commander, by the way, a much more difficult game to play than Crimson Skies. Also, because of that, not actually as fun. Like I've said, there was a sequel to Crimson Skies on the Xbox, but I haven't played it. A new one was being developed by FASA up until Microsoft shut down the studio because, hey, they launched that also fantastic Shadowrun game, which was nothing like Shadowrun. You know, the one for Vista and for Xbox 360 that had crossplay, in which they nerfed mouse aiming because why wouldn't they? And now, well, everything's kind of in the wind. Jordan Weisman, I believe, has at least licensed back Crimson Skies from Microsoft. I'm not sure if he actually owns it, like the IP, not the games. The games cannot actually be bought new anywhere, so maybe secondhand you'll find it somewhere, or you could Robin Hood it. Not that I would encourage something like that for a game that no one sells or seems to give a crap about. But you know who does give a crap about this game? The community, because people have tried their best to keep it functional. A few years ago, I actually couldn't play it because it did not work on modern NVIDIA video cards. I had to wait until I switched to a Radeon X1950 Pro to be able to play it again. Oh, and by the way, MechWarrior 3 looks fantastic on that video card with anti-aliasing enabled by force. It looks stunning. So you could probably get this game through your own means and patch it with the community patches and, well, have fun with it. Well, now the game's not as perfect as I make it out to be. They never are. It still has some issues like the AI for your wingman being so dumb that often they will crash into you right at the start of a mission and kill you outright, or they'll just die. Which is kinda sad because they actually talk during the missions, like they say things, mostly the same things, over and over again, but they're nice. I like them. And I'm now just hoping that maybe someone's gonna make an open world-ish game based on Crimson Skies, maybe an MMO, where you could build your own fleet with your own zeppelin, with your own planes, with your own crew, and just head into that sunset and fly and fly and fly away. Oh man, am I sick of games that aren't trying to be as awesome as Crimson Skies was. Is romance really that dead? As if it is, then what the hell are we even doing anymore? Thank you for watching this show. If you enjoyed it, please consider watching some of our other videos and maybe sharing them or giving a thumbs up if you feel like it. And if you really liked what you saw, please check out our Patreon page. For just $1 a month, you could help us make much better shows and get some rewards in the process. Or you could consider buying my book called Tale of Doom. Volume 1 is out now and available for just $2. And as always, if you thought it was horrible, you know where to find me and complain about it.